This time, no, but last time wiped him out. Meeting of the Home Rule Charter Commission will come to order. We'll have the invocation and the pledge. Everybody stand.
Our heads. Our Heavenly Father, as we come this hour in the evening, we give thanks for allowing us to assemble here this evening. And Father God, as we attempt to do the business of the parish, we just pray that you just lead us and guide us and have us to do things that are decent and in order. These blessings we ask in your darling Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mrs. On, please.
Terry Cazzo. Present. Michael LeBlanc. Charles Shivers.
Present.
Milton Cluott.
Present.
Kenneth Leary Jr. Mark Stewart.
Present.
Greg DePlessis.
Present.
Robert Poche.
Present.
Diane Ayo. She did call to tell me she would not be in attendance. And Sitman Red Luke.
Here.
Thank you, Mrs. On. Public comment sign in at this moment. No one's here. I just want to take a few minutes right now to thank Ms. Suzanne and our legal staff and all these meetings that we go to. Some of them get a little long, and I appreciate their time and their patience. Next item is going to be old business. Okay, with me.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read some on old business, please, if I may.
Yes, sir. Mr. Luke.
Commissioners, we talked a lot last meeting on the election of officers for the parish council, and I have received since that time rules, bylaws, and standard operating procedures of the Ascension Parish Council. And I'd like to read you one insert, which is Section 4, Election of Officers, and maybe this will help clarify that the governing authority does have standards that they operate by. This is Section 4, Election of Officers 8. At the first regular meeting of the newly elected Ascension Parish Council and annually thereafter, a chair and vice chair will be selected from the Ascension Parish Council members by a majority vote. And I hope that clarifies that we were trying to get this in the charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Luke. Mr. Poche.
Mr. Luke, that's what you're saying. What you're saying is accurate, but it's not a mandate. They can change that at their next meeting. I don't think that they would. I'm only pointing out that those are not charter provisions. That's just something that they decided they can do, and they can undo it at their next meeting. I'm just pointing that out.
Thank you, Mr. Poche and Mr. Luke. Next item on the agenda is going to be to adopt the minutes of the October 15th meeting. Do I have a motion?
Well, Mr. Mark LeBlanc was terrible last meeting. He missed it twice.
I saw that.
Motion to accept.
I second the motion.
Against? Anyone against accepting the minutes? Motion passes. Next item. We're going to have a subcommittee report on Article 4, Governing Authority, Section 4-04A. Mr. DePlessis, you have the floor.
I'd like to ask at this time that we pass on this item on the agenda due to the fact we have not had an opportunity to meet yet, and I have nothing to offer at this time.
You granted that. We'll move to the next item. Will be Section 4-12-J, and that's Ms. Terry. You have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna have to beg you, all of you, to indulge me for about 3 minutes, because I read this to a friend of mine, had him time it, see how long it would take me to say what I needed to say. And so I'm going to be reading from what I have been thinking about for several weeks, and finally been able to hopefully gel it all together and have it make sense for you. And it relates to this section. You may have to allow me a little leniency, because I'm going to ramble a little bit about some issues, but it all relates to that, and if you find in the end that it doesn't, then I'll certainly allow you to strike everything I've said from the record.
You go right ahead, Ms. Cascio.
I have studied the Public Affairs Research Council's recommendations and evaluated our current Home Rule Charter for months. I understand the history of the original Home Rule Charter.
Ms. Cascio, I hate to interrupt you, but can you get on your mic? We're having a little hard
I'm
hearing
sorry.
you. We're having
I'm
a little
sorry.
hard hearing you.
I don't know if it's working.
Yeah.
Okay, please continue.
Okay. I understand, as I said, the history of our original Home Rule Charter. And I think that now is the time for us to move, or at least to recommend a move to a true Home Rule Charter. Not a police jury with a legislative branch whose powers cross the boundaries of the executive branch, tilting the balance of power. This tilt of the balance of power is contrary to the intent of a Home Rule Charter. Somehow the phrase checks and balances has been used to justify this tilt of power, but the two should not be at odds with each other. Checks and balances exist in a true Home Rule Charter within the legislative branch's power of ratification, budget approval, and its right to investigate. Checks and balances exist in its Human Resources Department with an appeal process that surpasses most of those in the private sector. The balance of power and the checks and balances can and do coexist in the Home Rule Charters of our neighboring parishes. And we currently have a good council and a capable administration, and it is time for a true Home Rule Charter. But getting one is going to require a leap of faith and some confidence and cooperation between the two branches of government, as well as recommendations from this committee. If we do not make the bold move that has been recommended by the Public Affairs Research Council to balance the powers, we might as well have not pretended to create a Home Rule Charter in 1993, and we certainly don't need to keep on coming over here on Wednesday night. What we have now is a police jury on steroids, with an additional branch of government thrown in to make it feel and look like a Home Rule Charter. But just like with steroids, you might feel good on them, but there are some serious side effects. One is that conflict can and does often result when the administration struggles with no power to execute the laws passed by the legislative branch. Another is that day-to-day operation is hampered by this tilted power. The wheels of government turn at a snail's pace. Simple administrative functions have to plod through committees and be signed off on by the council, giving the administrative power to the legislative branch. This micromanagement of every aspect of the parish is a strain on part-time legislators, the council, who could be legislating then turning over the administration to the full-time branch, the administrative branch, the office of the parish president. This is the intent of a true Home Rule Charter. This Charter Review Commission needs to move to balance the power. We can do so by following the national, state, and local models of government, and by honoring PAR, or at least re-examining some of PAR's recommendations. To do this, we've got to do three things right off. We've got to revisit in our charter, Section 3.01F, Section 4.09, and we need to address tonight Section 412J by moving it, when it becomes appropriate, to Section 5.01B as number 9. This, according to PAR, is a budgetary function that was inappropriately given to the council or the legislative branch when it should have been given to the administrative or executive branch, effectively balancing the powers of government. When and if we do these three things, we will have given the council and the people of Ascension Parish an opportunity to have a true home rule charter form of government, with checks and balances appropriate to each branch and a balance of power. The recommendation of how we deal with Section 412J is that at the appropriate point in time, we will move it to 01B as number 9. And that's the recommendation based on our discussion by the committee and with my remarks explaining it.
Would you read that? Where would you mention? What did you mention? 5 what? Would you mention that again, please, ma'am?
412J would move to 501B number 9, and that is the recommendation that PAR made, and that is the recommendation that, after much deliberation and thought, we made. It does bring all of the skeletons out of the closet, and we've just got to talk about them.
That would be number 9 right there.
Is that the section you want to put in, section 5?
Yes, moves from
I know it's 5 what?
501B,
B, number 9.
number 9.
Powers of the treasurer?
Yes, would become a part of the administrative branch by being moved under the Department of the Treasury. Under the supervision of the parish president. It's a bold move because it does effectively separate the powers. But it is their recommendation, and it is mine also.
And that was PAR's recommendation?
Yes, it was.
That they move it from its
Yes.
present position
And I can take
to
you...
the position in which
Yes.
you are recommending
Yes,
or suggesting?
yes.
Did PAR give a reason as to why they, other than what you had commented on, as to why they want to move it from
My
that
state-
section to the new section?
My statement was a fairly good synopsis of what they said.
They said, okay.
It is a...
I'm gonna say let's take it up.
Sure.
When we get to this section tonight, we're going to discuss section 5. Article 5, section 501. We're going to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say let's take that up and at that particular time and tie section 4-12J and that section which we're going to move, or attempting or suggesting to move it at that particular time when we get there, and like that we can move on and take this up when we get to that section and take both of them up at the same time.
That's fine.
Is that the consensus of this commission? Okay. All right. Then the next item on the agenda is going to be new business, and it's going to be Article 5, Section 501, Secretary and Treasurer. Secretary and the Treasurer. Open for discussion.
There is also a recommendation from PAR that the Secretary and the Treasurer, or the Treasurer, be they're added to that title, be the CFO of the parish. So the Treasurer would be the Treasurer and CFO.
Yeah.
It's basically what Ms. Gwynn's called now. CFO. Exactly.
That's, let's bring that up at the proper time.
I think it kind of generally refers to the position is that in the parish
Right.
right now.
Then let's bring it up at the proper time. Right now, let's discuss section 501, paragraph A. Open for discussion.
Second.
Motion is second to leave it as is. Against? Motion passes. Next item is paragraph B, item number 1.
I'd like to make a motion that the treasurer be referred to from this point forward as the treasurer/CFO.
I'll second it.
And a motion is second that, that would be number 1. Okay, we put it as actually B. We'll have to go as B. Ms. Linda, let me ask you a question, ma'am. She's wanting to changing the title of treasurer to treasurer CFO. Would that go like be the title would be as treasurer CFO, or would we entitle it any one of these line items of one as B in section as B, right as B? Okay, let's down there would be that. Okay, let's jump back and take the topic B. The treasurer shall make your motion to that effect, Ms. Cassia.
That the
Treasurer B, okay.
that B read the treasurer/chief financial officer of the parish shall.
Motion is second. Against? Motion passes. Next item, which will then be paragraph 1 under paragraph topic B. Item number 1. Open for discussion.
Second.
Motion to leave it as it is in the second. Against? Motion passes. Paragraph 2.
Motion we leave it.
Motion is second to leave it as is. Against? Motion passes. Paragraph 3. Motion to leave it as is. Second. Against? Motion passed. Item 4.
Motion leave as it is.
Motion is second to leave it as it is. Against? Motion passes. Item 5. Paragraph 5.
Motion leave as is.
Second.
Motion is second to leave it as is. Against? Motion passes. Item 6. Motion
Second.
second to leave it as it is. Against?
Excuse Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Question, okay?
in number 6, would that tie in to what Ms. Terry was talking about earlier under 412? You're talking about here about the treasurer, CFO is responsible for execution, supervision of operating capital budgets and provide assistance in budget preparations.
I think it's a that the next one is a continued expression of that. Yes.
Well, I think all these items, I think, fall under that, under item B, paragraph B. So this item then would reflect treasurer, CFO under all of these items, 1 through 8, that would be inside. So I don't think we need to, do we need to insert that particular wording in any one of these line items that we've gone through so far?
The wording in 412J?
No, ma'am. No.
Yeah. I think
Number
that's what you're
6.
talking about, wasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, well, I
412,
mean,
Jeff?
that's what I was talking about. Would you put that in here, or do we create a number 9 if we decide to move that?
9. We create a new one. Yes, sir. Okay, let's move on to item 7.
Motion to leave it as it is.
Second.
Motion is second to leave it as it is. Against? Move on to item 8. Motion
Second.
second, leave it as it is. Against? Motion passed. Now, would take up this is the area in which we take up what Ms. Terry was talking about, adding item number 9.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. We move section 412J to section 501B, make it number 9.
Motion and a second to move section 4-12J to section 501 and create a new line item under B, number 9. Mr. Poche.
I'd like to ask legal if currently the major drainage would fit under that particular, would be included in that.
Under responsibilities of the treasurer, CFO,
Yes.
I wouldn't put it there.
Because of the fact that we have this a separate entity?
No, Mr. Poche, I do think,
This says along with the president. The president does not do that for major drainage.
right, I see what you're saying with 412J. I think it would fit there, then. You're correct. I think that would be a good place to insert it.
Well, I think it's going to need more than just inserting it there, but
Yeah, it's got to have a little
I
re.
have to have specific language. My point being, would it be proper to pass this J and change it into 9 with the current language that it has, when we know in advance that it does not cover all boards, because the president and the treasurer does not work on the budget for that major drainage. It's a separate entity altogether.
Right, but don't you intend to to make a recommendation to this commission that drainage be brought under the umbrella of the parish president and administration?
I intend to make that recommendation, but I have no guarantee that that recommendation will pass.
Well, by moving 412J, I believe that would include major drainage, so that's something for you all to consider.
Read J carefully. Provide, along with the president, the budgetary, that's not how it actually happens.
Well, what's happening, Mr. Poche, is it comes out from under the council.
The president has no powers over that whatsoever. It's
Well,
strictly under
he
the
will
council.
have if you put it back in here.
It's strictly under the council.
I understand that. But if you move it from there to here, he will have.
No,
Yep.
Yeah.
no,
No, it's not going to happen that easy.
No, it's,
it will not.
Well, that's why we threw it out there.
Trust me, it's not going to happen that easy.
I understand
We have
that.
to- We have to have something special
to,
done, inserted somewhere in this charter.
Specifically, sir.
Specifically moving that under the department of the president. Currently, the council got total control of it. The president does not.
I understand
And
that.
this says that the parish goes, wherever I was at.
But it won't any longer say the parish governing authority. It'll move to under here.
it's going to move on to Secretary and Treasurer.
It will no longer be under the governing authority section. It will move to under the secretary, treasurer, under the under administration. It's moving.
Well, we can move it, but if it's not
Well,
ratified by the council.
I agree with you, but we're only here to recommend.
Right. I see what you're trying
You
to
know,
do.
what they do is, we're throwing it out there for them. If
Right.
they don't have the courage to do it, I've got the courage to say it needs to be done.
I see what Ms.
Right.
Cassia was saying, by moving it from one, yes, we can, Mr. Poche, we can just make it as a recommendation, and if there's a conflict between,
We can put that over there, and it's going to still read the same way. Provide, along with the president, budgetary, fiscal, and other controls over all boards.
but I think we'd have to pretty much reword some of this.
But,
Ms. Mann, what you,
Mannequin can help with this, but there was something that, because of the way the law was passed, the tax was passed, that gave full authority to the council. And there was nothing in the charter to correct, current charter to correct that.
now, what's,
It's the only board, anything else that the
It's not.
president does not have control over.
But when you move J under the treasurer, that, the word provide along with the president, you're now referring to the CFO and the president.
Why is it?
Right now, it's referring to the governing authority and the president, because it's under them.
I would think it would have to be under the powers of the president too, though. Don't.
Well, it will be. It says along with the president.
I'll listen to legal on that.
Once you move it, it then becomes under the umbrella of the CFO and the president. Right now, it's under the umbrella of the governing authority, under powers in general.
I think what Mr. Porsche is getting at, unless you designate and put it under the parish president, some type of, you have to state that.
Yes.
If it's not stated,
It's not.
In other words, you're saying we'd have to,
all we're doing is moving this paragraph to
A different
under
location.
under the treasurer. That's what we're doing. But we're not doing anything as for the parish president. And I think that's what Mr. Porsche is trying to get at.
You're right. That's for legal to word it correctly.
Yeah.
Miss Lindsay, would you, before we act on this in relation to moving it from trying to, I don't know what the proper word would be, what Miss Casio's trying to do versus what Miss Porsche is saying, that may cause a conflict between moving it from one topic or one area of the charter into another area of the charter, that the wording of that would be changed. Do you have any idea as to what that word would be changed to accomplish what Ms. Terry's trying to do?
I think
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Porsche.
if you would, I think that what she's trying to do is perfectly in order.
Mhm.
I think that the other thing that we're discussing needed to be done first. Then it would, in fact, move under that. But currently, it is not that way.
Well, then that means we'd have to go back.
In discussing with legal before the meeting, she indicated she was going to draft something for us to have at our next meeting pertaining to that very issue. If that was,
I'm good with
if that was in place,
absolutely.
moving J where we want to would be proper.
Absolutely.
And it would cover everything. Currently,
That's-
we can move it, but it still doesn't cover major drainage.
If what you're recommending gets more done, I'm all for it.
Well,
Well,
let me,
I'm just trying to cover all.
Absolutely, I agree.
Mr. Porsche, can you give us the way the Drainage Commission is set up? Maybe maybe we'll understand. In other words, the Drainage Commission,
I'd rather let legal give you that description.
in other words, Ms. Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a special law passed for just Ascension Parish that they created a water district and that it took it away from the parish council and created a commission consisting, appointed by the parish council, and it's a totally different entity as a whole, and come up with their own budgets and report back to that commission?
Yes, and to be honest with you, it's not something I understand fully. I know the Attorney General has issued opinions that it's, I think, a local board, a parish board, and then our DA's office has actually said, no, it's a state board. So I'm prepared to research that further and come back with a recommendation for you all at the next meeting.
Okay. Because I was under the,
It
I
is
was
a
under the
special
understanding
district,
that,
yes.
I think it was Mr. Bro, when he was on here, I think, I wouldn't want to, I don't know what the exact word is, but he approached the legislature, and there was a law on the books now that pertained just to Ascension Parish in relation to the water district that was created for Ascension Parish, having their own entity, but was appointed a commission by the board, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Because I spoke to someone this week on this specific item, and Mr. Marvin Bro approached the legislature, and in the legislature's law right now, unless it's been changed, that there was a special water district created, and it actually says Ascension Parish, and then the board, the governing authority, created a commission board that the drainage department, or the drainage answers to that board, which is not the council. Am I right? Yes, sir.
If I may. I think what you're referring to is when the and Mr. Brewer, in fact, did spearhead it, went to the legislation and got the authorization to pass a half-cent sales tax. And part of that language was that you would have a board to govern it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I mean, I may have left a few
That-
things.
Well, but
Okay.
as we go further down the road, we find out that there's no board ever appointed. The council members decided that they were going to serve as the board members.
That's what I'm talking about. You're right.
Okay.
You're very right. But they're
And
serving
then-
as a
and
board,
then-
not as the councilman. They're serving as a board, even though it is the councilman, but it was a board.
You are correct.
Okay.
And it's the only
So-
board or anything else in this parish
That's right.
that the president does not set budget for it and just has no authorization to hire and fire or whatever.
Right. That's
That's the point that we need to make the correction.
right. That's what I'm asking to make sure that I understand. That's
Yes.
what I'm asking you. But
The point when Mr. Brewer went to, what I remember of it, whenever he went, it was to get the authorization to put the sales tax.
the tax and create the own board.
Yes.
To
and
create
it was
the
all
own board.
done-
it's
all done in
one time, and it's the only parish in the state of Louisiana that's like that. Okay. Now, Ms. Terry, did you understand what we
I
were
do.
just saying?
I fully understand, and I'm,
So-
I'd be happy for Lindsay just to work out the language and get it all in the right form, as long as we make the move.
Then that would mean taking the drainage board and putting it under the drainage department back under the parish president.
That's correct.
Now, I don't know where that would need to be done. That's a,
It's going to go further back.
No.
she'll- right.
Ms. Lindsay, would we have to take and do that first before we could do this particular item on J that we're talking about putting the drainage board back under the parish president's authority or overseeing? Or we could do this, or doing this would do that, what we're trying to do? And help me try to understand, Ms. Boucher.
I think you could move. Mr. Chairman, I think you can do what was suggested in there. You have in the motion. You can do what was suggested. I was only pointing out that it did not cover everything. When I was discussing this originally, that's the only thing I was trying to point out was that it did not cover everything. This provision that man is going to work out for us can be inserted at a different time frame than tonight, and it will still be governed. J will still pertain to it once we put it under the parish president.
I got one more question, Ms. Lindsay, to ask you. Can the present council at this time right now put the drainage board back underneath the parish president's authority?
Yes.
If they choose to, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we're making a recommendation with something that they can already do, right?
And as a committee, we did not look at the impact on the drainage. That was not the issue. The issue for us was to look at 412J and where it needed to be. As I said, that rolls those skeletons out the closet. And then Ms. Lindsay will have to tell us where to re-put them.
Let's, Mr. Duplessis?
Well, I was going to ask, do we have an active motion on the floor now?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, we do right now, Miss, to move section 412J to,
Number 9.
as number 9 under 501, number 9. Under B, number 9.
Are we prepared to vote on that, or should we table this?
There's a motion on the floor. It has a second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion passes.
One opposition.
One opposition, Ms. Secretary. Mr. Duplessis. Next item is going to be paragraph C. Motion to leave it as is. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Against. Motion passes. Next item, D. Mr. Poche.
Mr. Luke, the only paperwork that you indicated that you had seen that the council had done, did it not already separate the office of secretary and treasurer? It says here it may be. But I think that they passed something that it was going to be a separate, they were going to be separated. At one time, as you're aware, one person held both titles.
Well, do we have two of them right now?
We have a secretary and we have a treasurer. But it's not the same person.
All they're doing is saying may be the same. They're so
That
different.
word may, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with it.
Okay.
Okay, I have them.
Mr. Poche, I don't see anything on our bylaws that says anything about the secretary, them appointing a secretary. I don't see anything on our bylaws that addresses that situation.
I think that they had done that, though, where what they actually done was separate the two positions.
That's right, Mr. Poche. That was done in 2001 by Parish President Harold Marshall.
Right.
He's the one that separated them.
And it's like that today. Then, motion on, get a motion on the floor. And a second to remain as is. Against. Motion passed. Item E. I'm sorry, there was a motion to remain as is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, item E.
Motion to remain as is.
Second.
Motion is second to remain as is. Against. Motion passes. Move on to section 5-02, Chief Administration Officer.
Let me ask you a question, if you will, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Back on E.
Yes, sir.
One second. We're going to really punish them bad if we're going to give them 3 months. Some of y'all help me. I think that we currently do that, but I think it should be also be in the code, whether the treasurer needs to be bonded. I think, does not that already happen?
That is in the charter.
I thought that I was trying to remember if it was in there or not.
Under some kind of surety bond. I'm looking for the section number.
Yes,
If y'all can remember that it's in there, that's fine. We can move on.
yeah. Let's move on to the next item, 5-02.
Well, we didn't do E yet.
416.
Yeah, we did.
We did E. I'm sorry.
I know it was election, and you got a lot on your mind. Got a lot on your mind, Mr. Poche. All right,
That
let's
worked for
go.
our election.
Let's go to the next, 5-02, item A. Or better yet than that, the main item.
Leave it as is.
Motion to leave it as is. Against? Pass. Paragraph 1.
Second.
Motion is second to remain. Against? Item 2.
Controversy.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do y'all want to leave it like that?
Motion to leave it as is.
Item 2.
I think we need to have a little discussion.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's.
I thought that you was coming up with that.
Okay. Item 2, open for discussion.
I-
Item 2, open
I
for
think
discussion.
I think it actually is going to be okay where it is and how it is, because this is under the chief administrative officer and what his authority is, as I'm understanding it. My issue and our committee's issue was not with what the responsibilities are of the chief administrative officer, but with regard to what the council's responsibilities are, hiring and firing of employees, which I think we need to relook at, but those are not on the agenda for tonight, and we would have to look at them at another time.
We will. We will come back.
I don't
And
think
recap.
that this one in any way, and right off the top of my head, I haven't studied it very carefully. Mr. Poche, you may see something I don't see. But I don't see that this
Appoint
one.
and remove.
Pardon?
Appoint and remove as otherwise provided by this charter.
I think we're going to fix those other things if we do, and so this is okay.
Okay.
I think. And if we have to look at it again afterwards,
I think it's.
You know.
I think it's okay.
because the chief administrative officer only has a limited amount of power to fire within his scope.
I don't think we vote.
Hire or
Accept
fire.
is the key word.
I don't think we
And
voted
I
on
agree
the-
with you that accept may be an issue, but I don't know if it is if we fix some other things.
We have a motion. We didn't vote. A motion on number 2
Should we,
to accept.
just a little further discussion, should we just kind of not make a vote on this one and let's take a look at it after we look at
mean
a couple
defer?
other things? Defer it. Just to, I mean, I hate to do that because time is of the essence, but if Mr. Poche thinks that wording is a problem, maybe Miss Manda can help
I
us
was
on
only
that.
going by what you had said earlier about when we was on the other section.
Right. Oh, yeah, we're
And
going to go
it-
back to those
and
others.
it definitely relates to that.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor though to leave it as is.
Do we have a
Against.
second, or we can withdraw that motion?
Oh, yeah, it had a second.
Can we make a substitute motion that we,
You can withdraw your motion.
I didn't make
Did
the
she
original
withdraw her
one.
motion, Ms. Mann?
I didn't make it.
Oh, she didn't make it. Who made it?
I made it.
Oh, you made it? And you say, you gonna
And
withdraw it?
No.
Okay.
Then
We
we
have-
jumped in there with all this discussion.
Okay. All right, then we have a motion on the floor to leave it as it is. We're going to vote on it right now. You will put a second, amend the motion?
She can make a substitute.
I'd like to
Substitute
make a
motion?
substitute motion.
Okay,
that we-
substitute motion?
That we look at this one after we have completed a
Deferred it, okay.
reevaluation of
Do I have a second on your
3.01
motion?
and 4.09.
Okay, do
Do
I have
I
a
get a
second?
second on that
Yes,
anywhere?
yes,
I'll
ma'am.
second for
Okay.
discussion. I'll second for
Second
discussion.
it. Against? Motion passed. Next item, 3. We're going to defer that, item number 2. Item number 3.
I move we accept it as written.
Second.
Motion is second to leave it as is. Against? Motion passed. Item 4. Motion to leave it as it is?
Second.
Second. Against? Motion passed. Item 5.
Motion we leave it?
Motion is second to leave it as is. Against? Motion passed. Item 6.
Second.
Motion second to leave it as is. Against? Motion passed. Item 7. Motion is second to leave it as is. Against? Motion passed. Item 8.
Motion to leave as is.
Motion is second to leave it as is. Against? Motion passed. Item 9.
Motion to leave it as is.
Second.
Motion is second to leave it as it is. Against? Motion passed. We move on to item 5, or section 5-03, Parish Attorney. Open for discussion.
I make a motion, we leave it as is.
This is what we discussed earlier about
About
District attorney.
Yeah, about having a one, hiring.
the district shall serve as the parish president. However, the governing authority determines that parish was better served by full. See, what we had discussed earlier, didn't this cover the, isn't that the wording that we'd
Exactly.
need anyway?
Yes.
So currently, the parish can do it without us making any amendments that we had discussed earlier.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Motion.
Stand as is. Looks to me like.
Motion is second to remain as is. Against? Motion passed. Paragraph A, item 1. Open for discussion.
Is there any way that we can just say A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and let everybody look at them and make one motion and say
I would
amen?
think, unless there's
Bless 'em.
somebody would object to it, if they have the only way we could, Ms. Manley, could we do that? Is sum them all up? If all these items are acceptable and we want to leave them as is, can we lump them up all as one motion, one item?
Absolutely.
We can? Okay, then let's everybody take a little time and we're going to go section 503, A, 1 through 6.
I think we read through them. If anybody
I
has
make a
any-
motion, we leave it as it is?
I'll second.
Motion to
Entire
remain as
section A,
is?
right? We're talking about entire section A.
Yes.
1 through 6.
1 through 6,
Right.
not B, just
Right.
A, 1 through 6, right. Opposed? Motion passed. Item B. Open for discussion.
B is short.
I make a motion, we leave it as it is.
Second.
Unless somebody has a issue with. Lindsay,
like-
how long you been living in the parish?
I'd like to open
I
this
have
up.
not been living in the parish for 5 years.
Well,
Do
we
we-
might ought to reduce the number.
Do we think
I
we need
withdraw
to
that
leave
motion.
in other words, do we think we need to leave the 5 years in here?
There are two issues, the residency requirement and the experience.
No.
The residency requirement, you might have an excellent parish attorney out of, Shreveport who moves down here and he's been practicing for 20 years and is well versed in the law, but this residency requirement would prohibit them from serving as the parish attorney. And it's interesting to note, councilmen and the parish president don't have to be living here, but for a year?
Right.
That's right.
So that's just something for you all to
How
consider.
about chief administrative officer? Same story.
What,
Yeah, so I'll withdraw that motion and make another motion.
You wanna-
Can I do that?
you revive your motion?
Yeah, I want.
Okay.
And I did think that was a little prohibitive. I think that if we can either strike the, and I know, I'm sorry, I'm rambling here. We're not to the discussion issues of this yet, but perhaps we make it 1 year, make a motion that we make a 1 year immediately preceding his appointment.
But like Miss Manley said, suppose somebody moves here.
Well, let's vote on it and negate it,
the
and then we'll go to
parish
that.
is- Wait, let me finish. And the parish is wanting to hire an attorney, and he
I
moves
agree.
here, and they need one in, say, 6 weeks, and he's qualified.
But I'm kind of stuck with my motion is my problem. I mean,
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
what to do to get us back out of this parliamentary problem we're in.
Can
Did I,
may
can
I
I
make- may I
just
make a
withdraw it?
suggestion,
Yes,
please?
Sure,
Yes,
please.
go ahead.
The full-time parish attorney shall be a licensed attorney who has practiced law for at least 5 years immediately preceding his appointment.
Sounds good to me. I wish I'd have said that.
You may.
I said that. I quote Mr. Poche. That's my motion.
So, Ms. Manley, how we do this? Now, we can say, we word Mr. Poche's
Mr. Poche's
wording
wording my
for Ms.
motion.
Terry's motion,
So you just scratch
and
out.
call it her motion.
Just scratch out the reside.
Can
There's
I
no
have,
residency.
No, just take the reside.
Either
Yeah.
the full-time parish attorney shall be a licensed attorney who has practiced law
Has,
for at least 5 years immediately preceding his appointment.
Yeah, so you're just substituting practice law 5 years and versus living
yeah.
living in Ascension Parish, practicing law in Ascension Parish or the
No.
parish.
You don't have to practice law in this parish.
That's what I'm saying. But in here it does.
We took out a residency.
In the
we took
parish,
out
at least
practice law in the
5
parish.
years.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's all it
Yes,
is.
that's what I'm saying. He's just taking it out. Practice law. That's what I'm
It's just an
saying.
experience issue.
experience. Yeah, because if a
So-
lawyer goes to school and becomes a lawyer, no matter where he lives, he doesn't put his time. He doesn't put his time in. He or she's put his time in.
I'd like for them to have at least 5 years experience.
Yeah,
Okay.
But we don't want any residency restrictions.
I don't think it needs it either. Yeah. Okay,
I like that.
Miss Terry, you make the motion. You made
that was
you
my
withdrew it,
motion.
so you make.
I quote Mr.
I'll
Roberts.
second that.
And the second the motion is second to.
Strike the resident.
I'm gonna.
You want to read the motion again?
Yes, sir, Mr. Poche. You read. You read
I'm gonna
Ms. Terry's motion.
I got her motion wrote down.
Okay,
Thank
you
you.
read it. You read Ms. Terry's.
The full-time parish attorney shall be a licensed attorney who has practiced law for at least 5 years immediately preceding his appointment.
Against.
No.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Against. Motion passed. We'll move on to section 5-04, Human Resource Department. Main topic.
Motion to take it up.
Have a motion to take it up. That's what I'm saying, the main
That's
topic.
what you're asking for.
Yeah, well, no, I'm just saying. Motion and a second. Motion passed. Anybody against? Motion passed. Paragraph A. Motion, second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second to leave as is. Against?
Do we have any discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Terry, I didn't maybe explain. In order to speed this thing up, if we're doing it,
You're still going to act.
we're still going to act, okay, all right.
You still have to act.
Okay, let's discuss
Is there
item
any
A.
discussion on the motion?
Discussion on the motion, item A.
I have just a question in my mind, whether we should have, and I think this may refer back to a couple of other places as well, we talked about whether we need to put some qualifications on some of these people. And if this might be one of those where we would have some qualifications necessary. Experience, or I'm just throwing that out there for discussion.
Anybody else? I have a motion to leave as is. And a second? Against? Motion passed. Item B. Open for discussion.
Motion we leave as is.
Motion is second to leave it as is. Any discussion? Against? Motion passed. Item C. Open for discussion.
Are we on C?
We're on C, just C. Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
just C. Yeah, I'm gonna throw them in there. Throw 'em in there.
I have some questions about C2.
Yes, ma'am. Office, any board member. Mr. Terry?
I think this once again speaks to the issue of the separation of powers. And my my statement with regard to the separation of powers and the how to best, and the checks and balances. The review board, I believe, is sufficient without tossing this back to the council to overrule a decision made in the administration. That's where we go back to looking at the commingling of the two entities and consequently the tilting of the balance of power. So I would like to see that after all this review, unless there is legal action taken, and certainly an individual has the right to do that, and their counsel can advise, and our counsel could advise the parish president that he was making a drastic mistake, that he's opening himself up to litigation, but that ultimately the administrative body is the final say-so.
Governing authority or two-thirds vote.
So it would end at final and strike unless overruled by a two-thirds majority vote of the governing authority.
Well, wait a minute, are we discussing
Yes,
C?
she's on two. No, she's on
C2.
C number 2.
See number 2.
We hadn't finished with C yet.
No, okay.
I thought we were through
Okay.
with C, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, we were doing 1 and 2.
Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, we're gonna do C.
I apologize.
Yeah, I thought we were
C.
doing it all
Part
in.
of C.
I thought we were
Okay.
doing the whole
I don't
thing.
think you can
Okay.
discuss C
Yeah.
without,
All right.
without
Hold.
1
You have to
and
do
2.
the whole thing.
All right, we're gonna do C, 1 and 2. Open for discussion.
That's what she was discussing. She was discussing two.
So I would like to, I would like to appeal to you all to try to separate this thing. And let's see where the council goes with it.
Convicted of a crime.
This is the one discussion that we've been having ever since
Right.
we
Exactly.
met, and
It's the one of 2 or 3,
Yeah.
exactly. And, private business has, some of our staffs here are better protected in some cases than those of the private sector. If I let a member of my staff go, they don't have anybody to appeal to.
Majority voted to go.
Terry, can I make a comment to you?
Sure. Please.
I think these concern all employees.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're talking about is department head, right?
I think we
You're
also
thinking
have to
all
look at
employees.
this one. I think we need to look at this one. It's just look at it. My major concern is department heads, yes.
Right.
Office, any
But-
board member.
But this one, I think, is just another step in that reaching out in there and holding on to the power to administrate as opposed to legislating.
No, but that's a separate entity altogether. That's, we going to fill the vacancies.
I will, Mark asked a question I want to mention to you. Other charters in the area do not have this provision. I mean, when if they let you go
Shall, then it goes to these two things.
No, they don't have-
you
So
go.
that don't have
After
any-
this appeal process, certainly.
Starts right here.
Period
on the
after
appeal.
final.
Period after final.
Strike the rest.
That would be my motion.
It's final.
I'm of the
But I don't know
opinion-
if we've gotten there yet.
Unless it's
Yeah,
approved.
I'm of the opinion that, to me, for a two-third vote to override it, I would think that something drastic's got to happen. I think with the two-third votes, that's a reassuring. I think they put it in there. Like I say, I think they may have had to use that maybe on one occasion since this charter was written. And I think that was at the recommendation of the attorney. So I still think the two-third votes, that's just my opinion. I'd like to leave it in there, but whatever the commission chooses to do, I'm fine with it. That's just my personal opinion. I just think when you got a council, in order to get two-thirds to override it, I think that's a pretty good substantial number, a two-third vote.
Terry, what you're asking is not to eliminate the review board process,
No,
just to
not at all.
eliminate having the option for it to go back to the council.
Exactly.
Right, and I'm in agreement with that. That the council appointed this 5-member review board. They need to put their faith and confidence in them to do what they were appointed to do, and then live with it. That's my opinion.
The only problem with that, Greg, is that that's not what we're living with. We're living with what the president decides. They make a recommendation to the president, and then the president, made by the president in these matters shall be final. Whatever the president says is final, not the board. The board just makes the recommendation.
Correct.
What the president decides is what's final, unless it's overridden by a 2/3 vote of the charter, of the council.
And the board could recommend one thing, but the president don't have to agree with that.
Nope.
He don't have to agree with that.
He's not.
But then the board has the final say.
No,
No, it does not. The
he does
president
not.
has
They
the
only
final-
recommend.
Excuse me, I'm talking about the council has the final say with a 2/3 vote.
With the
I'm sorry.
2/3.
At this point, yes.
With the 2/3.
With a 2/3 vote, then the council would have the 2/3. And you want to take the council's 2/3 vote majority out
Yes,
of
sir.
the workings.
Whatever the president says would be final.
Be
then,
final?
period.
Yes.
Okay, I see what you're saying now.
Yeah, I do too. I got to apologize. I didn't quite understand what you were trying to do here, Miss Cascio, but now I understand.
And no
Well,
problem.
You're discussing it. Do we have any?
I understand, I just don't agree.
That's
Well,
why we all here.
That's why we're here in the United States. We can
Hey,
disagree.
Mr. Chairman, if this was a simple majority, I would agree with her. But I agree with what was said earlier, because of the fact that it requires a 2/3 vote, it'd have to be something pretty substantial to make, I mean, you know, it's a lot harder to get a 2/3 vote than a simple majority.
Robert, am I reading this correct, that it says overruled by 2/3 majority vote of the governing authority? Does that mean the full governing authority?
Yeah,
In other words, they'd have to have 11 of them,
right.
right?
Yes,
They
sir.
couldn't vote
They
with
would
just
need 8
6.
votes.
No.
No.
That's,
They need 8 votes.
They
Need
need
8 votes,
Right.
right?
It's required 8 votes.
yes.
My only point is that it is recommended that we have a separation of power, and that would accomplish that. And it would not be allowing it to be re-interjected into the council again. The council, as Greg stated, has appointed a representative board. It's there. The people who work for the parish do in fact work for the parish president, and that is the separation of power. They work for the governing body is the legislative branch. It makes the laws. The parish president's office is the administrative branch, and it should have the freedom to administer those laws.
Yes, sir, Ms. Moore.
Just wondering, the basic question on this whole thing is, as Ms. Terry said, should the other branch be involved in personnel matters, whether it be a department head or rank and file employee? There are other things out there, job protections, whether they work for a government or whether they work for a private business, if they're unfairly treated by any means that can show cause or whatever, then there are avenues out there for them to take, whether it be not necessarily that the council can give it back to them, but should you have the two different branches of government competing in personnel matters, and you let the president hire them, but yet he can maybe fire them, but maybe he can't, depending on what the legislative branch may say in there. And so if the person can hire them, shouldn't they be able to fire them? And then again, employees like anywhere else, I would think, would have, if they have just cause, have other avenues to take their complaints if they feel like they were treated unfairly to other avenues. So I'm just saying, I think the whole big thing is, should both branches be involved in this, or should the employee decisions reside strictly with the executive branch?
Just my personal opinion, I fully agree with Ms. Terry and you're saying, because in all my days of being in business, I sure didn't want, if I fired someone and it was unjust or whatever, they had their avenues, but I sure didn't want somebody within my staff or within my corporation says I can't do it, you got to rehire them back or whatever. So it's be the consensus of this board as to what y'all want to do with this item, as to how you want to make a motion to make it change or leave it as it is.
I think I made the motion that we strike at final.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Would you repeat your motion again, Ms. Terry?
My motion is that C2, ending in the word final, striking unless overruled by a 2/3 majority vote of the governing authority.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. We discussed it. Do I have anybody against?
I ask for a roll call vote, please, Mr. Chairman.
We have a commission ask for a roll vote. Ms. Terry?
I'm for it, striking it.
Mr. Mark?
For the motion.
Against.
Sure. Against? For.
Against.
Against?
Against.
Against? 1, 2.
Yeah, you caught.
Oh, God. Y'all, now, let's not do this. I'm for the motion.
Motion carries.
Motion carries to strike unless override by 2/3 majority of the vote of the governing authority. Like you said earlier, Mr. Poche, this is just a recommendation. That's all my personal opinion, recommendation, sir. They get to vote on, the council get to vote on it and everything.
No,
Okay,
sir.
let's move on to item D, under section 504, item D. In other words, wait, let me back up a minute. So section C, items 1, 2,
Change.
is going, item C
Pass as
and item 1 will remain. Item 2 will change
As amended.
as amended. Okay.
Was approved as amended.
As amended, right. Okay, we're going to take up item D, paragraph 1, 2, 3.
Let's take 1 and 2 first, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, because 3 has.
No problem.
other
We'll
parts
take,
to it.
we'll take care of section D, 1 and 2. Open for discussion.
Only discussion is, this is currently what's happening. Right? I mean, do we understand that? This is how the system is working currently.
Yes,
Yes,
to my
yes, sir.
knowledge.
Yes,
that
this
how
is,
it
right,
currently.
it's the home rule charter, in which everyone is working by, and
Motion. Leave it as is.
motion to leave it as is.
Second.
Second, to leave paragraph D, item 1 and 2, to remain as is. Against? Motion passed. Item 3. Do we want to take up item 3A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H?
I think we ought to take them all at one time.
Let's do this. We're going to open it up, item 3, paragraph A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. So look over it. If there's any changes, make a recommendation.
I make a motion, we leave it as it is.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to leave it as it is. Open for discussion on the motion. Any objections? Motion passed. Item E. Open for discussion.
Motion to leave as is.
Second.
Motion is second to leave it as it is. Any discussion? Against? Motion passed. Leave it like it is. Next item will be Article 6, Ordinance and Resolutions. Section 6-01. We're going to do the same thing here. Let's go through Section 601, paragraph 1 through 15. We'll take a few minutes to read it. Then we'll discuss it if there's any need to a motion.
I have a question,
Yes, ma'am.
and this may be something, Mr. Poche, that you could help me with. If we wanted to create a planning department, and we wanted to create a public works department, would we, I take it we would do that under 5.
I would think that that's where we go. That would be the proper place.
And if if we created a public works department, could we do a subset of that with drainage and planning and perhaps effectively accomplish what you were discussing earlier?
I'd like to leave it as separate because it's taxed separately. It has a special tax just for major drainage. I wouldn't like to include it in something. I would not like to include it with something different, something else.
Okay.
Let's understand the motion. Now, the motion is to leave Section 601, 1 through 15, to remain as is. Discussion on the motion. Against? Oh, excuse me.
Is it on a discussion on number 13?
Yes, sir.
It seems like there should be more to that sentence. And I'm not sure what language to put on it. Minnie, can you help me with that, please? 13. It just seems like,
I read that one, and from what I see, it
Ms.
just,
Cindy,
that's the only way this charter can be changed, is by ordinance.
I think you're right, Ray. I think it would be correct as is.
Right. If you read
From
the
the top and put
It would
this
be, it'd be correct as
read
is.
the top and implement it
Have-
It just seemed like it was
Yeah,
common.
it was kind of good, it's right.
Yeah,
For such a powerful statement.
yeah.
I mean, ordinance is law.
Mr. Posh,
okay.
my brain is starting to be fried. Mr. Milton,
Yes, ma'am.
we had a motion on E and a second and it passed, and I think I let that thing get by me. And I think because I'm
On where?
on section E, under 5.
Okay, let's see.
I
Give me a
think,
chance to get there. Working a little slow here.
I think we're backing up, and I apologize for that. I've made it a passion of mine to try to find everything in this document that
E, right here.
I've been trying to find everything that causes this lack of balance here. And I think that this one is another one, and it got by me. And so I'd like to discuss this one. Considering all the progress we've made tonight to balance powers, I think this is another one of those sections, like Mark was talking about, that takes personnel issues, their rules, their regulations, and tosses them back on the council for them to approve, which is not their function. They are the legislative branch. They are not the administrative branch. I would be happy to hear other argument, but I think this is another one that we need to look at.
Miss Lindsay, let me ask you something. Can we go back on this?
Yes, it's on the agenda.
Okay.
You
Okay,
Can
So
discuss it.
we've already voted. Have we not voted? Everybody passed it?
that's what I'm asking, Ms. Lindsay. We've already made a motion and voted on it, and it was passed. This item, Ms.
Right, but if a commission member wants to discuss it and you all agree to discuss it, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, but then if we want to change it, can we change it?
Yes.
Can we rechange it, I guess?
Yes, you can.
Okay, all right. I just want to stay within the rules and regulations of what we're supposed to be doing. All right. Ms. Terry, you have the floor.
My concern is certainly that the personnel director should submit his regulations, his procedures, his rules to the president. I don't understand why the president then has to take them to the council, have the council approve them or disapprove them, or allow them to change them, and then send them back. I mean, we're once again flip-flopping between the two branches of government.
Terry, can
Sure.
I discuss something with you? Under the personnel director, back, I don't know how long it was ago, it was under the police jury system. They came up with a drug program. And the only way the drug program could be implemented was it had to come from the human resource director to the parish president, and then had to be enacted by an ordinance of the parish council before they could implement a drug program. And I don't know exactly when it was. I took over the human resource director in '95, I think it was, and it was already implemented at that time. But before that, they didn't have a drug program, and the only way they could get one implemented was by an ordinance created by the governing authority, or with police jury at that time.
And that's my point. Is it was this is a throwback to the police jury system. We've got the council regulating the administration, not legislating, but being involved in personnel.
It was a requirement that the parish council pass this. It was a requirement that the council pass it, not the parish president, is what Mr. Luke is indicating. I think it was also, Mr. Lupe, you can refresh my memory, but I think it was something with mental health that they had that same type of scenario.
That's correct, Mr. Poche. It went, that's where it initiated from. That's exactly where it initiated from.
I would really like to study this one some before if the rest of the commission would allow us to back up on this one, and let's have some, and let me do a little study on it, and because
We have a commission member that's asking to back up and review.
defer it until another time, if at all possible.
So, Mr.
Terry, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Under the third phase of our procedure, couldn't we bring this back up on for a final
Sure.
vote?
Sure.
And go ahead and pass this right now and let you do your
Sure.
Research.
do your research and bring it back under the third phase, and then that way you'll have a little research and you could maybe,
Sure, I'll be happy to.
okay.
I'll be burning up that computer
There you
for the
go.
next.
There you go.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay, let's move on.
You got a better chance of getting a favorable vote.
Well, that may be true. I've been calling lawyers all over two parishes for the last few days.
Politics here now.
I'm burning them all up, trying to find out what's supposed to be happening in between a home rule charter and a police jury.
I must say, Miss Terry, you've studied the difference between the two now. I must say. Okay, let's go on to section 6-01, paragraphs 1 through 15. Back on the floor.
I think we actually had a motion.
You had a motion and a second?
A motion and a second?
It was
Okay.
not, it was not in
Oh,
order
we-
to discuss
okay,
anything
all right.
while the motion was on the floor.
Thank you, sir. Any discussions on any of these items? We discussed one of them.
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah, we discussed one of them.
No, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta tell me.
Move we accept as read.
You said you read Robert's Rules of Order three times today.
No, I did it just on one section, Mr. Porcher. Man. Okay, against the motion. All in favor? Motion passed. Section 602, paragraph A.
Leave as is. Motion.
Second.
Motion, second to leave as is. Discussion. Against. Motion passed. Item B.
Leave as is. Motion.
Motion. Discussion. Against. Motion passed. Item C.
Could we take all these up, Mr. Poche? Just read.
No, let's do the, these are quite lengthy, so let's go through A, B, and C, and then 1, 2, and 3. And these are all quite, I don't want to get in a situation where we seem to be
Yes,
getting
sir.
in a situation where we back it up, and
Yeah, I apologize for that.
that's all right, so we see item 1.
As is.
Second.
Motion second to leave item 1 as is. Discussion? Against? Motion passes. Paragraph 2.
Motion we leave it as is.
Motion second to leave it as is. Discussion? Against? Motion passed.
Y'all understand that that one takes a 2/3 vote? Right. Okay. Just wanted to point it out.
I'm waiting on Miss Terry. She's governor about that 2/3. She's good at that 2/3.
I like it myself.
Yeah. Item 3, paragraph 3. Motion? Motion is second to leave it as is. Discussion? Against?
Which, I'm
Motion passed.
losing track of where we are here.
We
Number
just
4.
passed 3.
Edit to number 4. Paragraph 4.
Oh, yeah, that is I've been trying to figure out where that was, where you had to read all those ordinances. We finally found it. And they done passed it.
Yeah, come on, Miss Terry.
Council's gonna change it anyway.
Sir?
Yeah, but
Gonna change it.
yeah, I think that's the one thing the parish president did ask me to do, was try to get him not to have to read all those ordinances.
Item 4.
We're on 4.
Number 4. Yeah. Open for discussion.
Motion to leave as is.
Motion second to leave it as is. Discussion? Against? Motion passed. Paragraph 5.
Got a legal question.
Who is that?
Motion we leave it as is.
Motion is second to leave it as is.
I got a
Discussion? Mr. Forte?
Yes. Let me find out what I'm going to word this. I'd like to ask a legal question, please. If someone excuses himself because of one of these reasons, how does that affect the 2/3 vote?
Well, I would imagine that the 2/3 vote would still be of the total membership, which is 11. So
You still need a 2/3 vote,
you
even
would
if
still,
someone.
still need
Okay,
8 members
I
to
just
vote
wanted to be clear.
affirmatively.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's sort of like this commission. We got to have majority.
Yeah, but when you say a 2/3, it's a different.
Right. Yeah. Okay, got a motion and a second to remain against. Motion passed. Paragraph 6. Open for discussion.
Motion keep as written.
Motion is second to leave it as it is. Discussion? Against? Motion passed. Item 7.
Motion to leave it as is.
Motion to leave it as it
Second.
is. Second. Discussion? Against? Motion passed. Item A.
Motion to leave it as is.
Second.
That's there. 2/3. Motion is second to leave it as is. Discussion? Against? Motion passed. Paragraph 9.
Motion to leave as is.
Motion to leave it as is.
Second.
Second. Discussion? Against? Motion passed. We move on to section 6-03.
This one, I believe we can do the whole thing.
Let's look at items 1 through 4.
Motion to leave as is.
Second.
Motion is second to leave it as it is. Discussion? Against? Motion passed. Section 6-04.
I have a motion to amend Lindsay will have to help us with the wording, but I would like to see the reason for the emergency be stated in the emergency ordinance. That's the way they are in the home rule charters in our neighboring parishes. It states what is causing this emergency.
Just examples are all inclusive.
No, it's simply if they're wanting an emergency ordinance, then they need to say why. Because there's been a hurricane, or there's been a we just need a clarification where it's very clear why this emergency ordinance is being requested.
Ms. Terry, you going to put your motion together?
Well, I'm not very good at that. Mr. Bochet's better at it than I am. I really just want to make sure this is very clear. And maybe Lindsay can tell me that this is very clear, and so we're okay.
I thought it was pretty clear.
Lindsay, you think?
Ms. Terry, would you think that, like, a meeting of the public would be affected, that life, health, property, and public safety would not be sufficient as the emergency? Or you would want it to be just one line item specifically each time that emergency meeting was called? Specifically what it was called for?
Our neighboring parishes, they have a specific statement of the reason for the emergency.
Ms. Lindsay, would you help Ms. Cashier with that?
Sure. I think her earlier motion is perfectly acceptable, and I'll work on that language for you all for the final presentation when we vote on the Phase 3.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
It says with a 2/3 vote, the members may adopt an emergency ordinance. If they're going to have an ordinance, then you have to go back to the method in which you do an ordinance, which they will be telling what the ordinance is about.
I don't think so when you're in an emergency.
No, they're saying they can do it at the same meeting where the,
And it allows them to do it at this meeting without the prerequisite timeframes involved
Right.
because of
That's
the
all they
emergency
want to
status.
do is-
That's all this is doing.
Just giving them a chance to enact an
And,
emergency.
and once they do it under, when they enact it under that particular method, it can't exceed 60 days.
Have a motion and a second on the floor to reword section 604 through the legal department. We discussed it. Against?
You had a second for the motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Poche.
I'm in opposition.
Opposition? Okay.
Two.
Two?
Three.
Against it? Three? We're going to call a roll call right now. Ms. Terry?
I'm for it.
Mr. Mark?
That's to change it and not leave it as it is.
Right, it's
The
to
motion is-
reword it to where it identifies each specific emergency. And Ms. Lindsay, legal system will come up with the wording. Sir?
Oppose.
Oppose? Two opposed. Motion fails. Move on to item 6-05. Open for discussion.
Second.
Motion to leave it as it is. Any discussion? Against? Motion passes. Section 6-06. Open for discussion. Mr. Poche?
We've had some discussion about this at prior times, not us, but we discussed it earlier on 2 or 3 different occasions, and every time it came back to the fact that I think maybe we can get the secretary to tell us exactly the cost involved in this, but there's a serious cost involved in this. Secretary, do you happen to know that what the cost was for doing that?
For the code of
Yeah,
ordinances?
yeah.
No, I don't know the original.
You don't know the exact number,
No, I don't.
but it was very expensive, wasn't
Yes,
it?
it is. It is costly.
You're talking about the actual act of codifying
Yes,
all the
yes.
ordinances.
Yes.
Mrs., how many people actually come in and would like copies of this, of that?
Of the code?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you know, the code is online.
Yes, ma'am.
You can
Now.
go to the internet and get it, you know. But
Right.
as far as people coming in to get actual copies of the code, very few, very few.
So in other words, if we left the ordinance like it is right now, it would not truly be affected one way or the other, right? Okay. I'm talking about cost-wise. We have a motion and a second to leave it as it is. Against? Motion passed. Section 607, and we're going to take up 1 through 5. Open for discussion.
Well, here I go again. If you fine gentlemen will look at number 5, the council, the waters get muddied again. And it is PAR's recommendation that this be stricken. What this does is enables the council, once again, to fire somebody by resolution. And they're dabbling, with this in place, they are allowed once again to cross the line into the administration.
Mr. Poche.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to bring to y'all's attention that when this original charter was drafted, there was a lot of contention about this particular section where it authorizes people to do things that you would ordinarily not think that would be allowed to do. such as sign checks and execute documents, things like this. I'm only pointing out that we passed it that way. It was passed it was placed in the charter, but there was some serious discussion about the method that it was placed in there and the wording of it. If y'all comfortable with it, we can leave it like that. I'm just wanting to point that out. If you look at what this allows someone to do,
Any further discussions? Ms. Terry, you want to?
I don't want to keep repeating myself. I mean, I'm just trying to, I am trying to clean this document up, and I know how everybody feels.
No, you go right ahead. You're a member of this commission, and we're all members on this commission, and we all have a say into what we feel like we need to do as a member of this commission. So,
I would like to make a motion that we remove number 5.
do I have a second?
Second it.
Motion is second to remove item number 5 under section 6-07 resolutions. Open for discussion.
So if I'm understanding this right, 5,
Go away.
well, but it's,
Motion.
what does
as
it
it
mean?
stands right now, it allows the council to step in and terminate somebody.
Remove any person from office if provided.
This is ambiguous language in this thing.
Yes.
At the very
Right.
least.
It's
Well,
very ambiguous, and that's
Miss-
one of the problems.
Miss Amanda, would you explain item 5 more for us?
It allows the council to remove any person from office as provided for in the charter, but I believe that was already addressed by Ms. Casso, so I think it would only be logical to remove this section.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second on the floor to remove item number 5 under section 6-07. Against? Mr. Poche is against. Mr. Charles against. Motion passed.
We're going to remove that and we're going to authorize a person to execute, sign, or countersign a check or draft on account of the governing authority.
I think the only reason, according to Ms. Manda, is that if you leave 5 in here, it goes counter to what was approved earlier. So if you separated the stuff earlier, then this goes counter to that. So I mean, I don't have an issue with authorizing by resolution somebody sign a check, but if we did away with their ability to counter personnel decisions by the parish president earlier, that was the vote, then this goes directly against that. That's just how I see it.
Fellow commissioners, that concludes tonight's meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Motion second. Anybody against?
No, we're not talking about the treasurer.